Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we unpack the truth hidden in plain sight. Get ready, because today we're diving into ProMIS Neurosciences, and let me tell you, they've got some interesting moves happening that could shake things up. Alright, so ProMIS Neurosciences is announcing what's called a PIPE offering, not a plumbing job or anything like that, but a private investment in public equity. Think of it as the company selling off a piece of itself directly to big-time investors to raise cash. This particular deal aims to bring in about $3 million before they even pay any fees or expenses. It's like getting a cash injection to keep the business running smoothly or for new projects. Now, how are they doing this? They're selling warrants. These aren't the kind you wear on your wrist. These are options to buy company shares later. In this case, for every share they're selling at 18 3/4 cents, they're also giving investors warrants. And here's what's really key. The warrants have an exercise price of $1.25. What does that mean for us? Well, if the company's stock price goes above $1.25, these investors can use their warrants to buy shares at that lower price, potentially making a nice profit. It signals the company believes its stock will indeed climb well past that mark. These warrants can be used right away, but they won't last forever. They expire in 5 years. There's also a little clause in there where if investors try to exercise too many warrants, they might own too much of the company, so they can only exercise up to 4.99% or sometimes 9.99% 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 of sometimes 9.99% or sometimes 9.99% of sometimes 9.99% or sometimes 9.99% or sometimes 9.99% of the company's shares at any one time. So that $3 million from this PIPE offering is just part of the story. The company also mentions it's bringing in money from the exercise of existing warrants. When you combine those two things, the total cash boost could reach a whopping $12 million. That's a significant amount of money for a company like ProMIS, and it tells us they're serious about funding their operations or strategic goals. These equity moves are expected to be finalized very soon, typically by the next day. So the ink is barely dry on these agreements, really happening almost immediately. But that's not all with this deal. ProMIS is also entering into what's called a registration rights agreement. What does this mean for the investors who bought these warrants? Well, the company is promising to file paperwork with the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, in plain English. This means they'll make sure the shares that investors get from those warrants can be legally resold on the public market. They have to get this registration statement filed within 45 days of the deal closing, and then it needs to be approved by the SEC. This is really important for the investors because without this registration, they might not be able to easily sell the shares they get. It makes their investment more liquid, more accessible. So we've got the details on the warrants themselves, the purchase agreements, and the promises about future paperwork. These are the nuts and bolts of the deal designed to raise capital and satisfy the big investors. Now let's talk about how these shares and warrants are being sold. They're not being sold through the typical public market like the stock exchange. Instead, they're using what's called an exemption under the Securities Act. This usually means they believe these transactions are private, not involving the general public, and therefore don't need the full registration process. They're relying on rules that allow for private placements to what they call accredited investors, basically wealthy, sophisticated individuals and institutions who are deemed to understand the risks involved. But of course, any major company news like this is usually accompanied by a press release. ProMIS has also put out their own announcement about this offering. This press release is just further confirmation of the news we're seeing in this filing. It's their way of telling the world officially. Finally, the filing lists all the supporting documents, the actual contracts and agreements that make up this whole deal. These are the legal papers, the warrant forms, the purchase agreements, and the big announcement. And at the very end, we have the signatures. Neil Warmer, the Chief Executive Officer, is signing off, confirming that the company is making these official statements. It shows the leadership is aware and approves of this capital raising effort. It's a stamp of official approval from the top. So what does all this mean for ProMIS Neurosciences? Well, on one hand, raising $12 million is a significant financial boost. It shows that ProMIS can still attract investment even if it's through private placements and warrants. This capital could be crucial for their research and development efforts, perhaps advancing their mission to combat neurodegenerative diseases. However, we do need to consider the structure of the deal. Selling warrants with an exercise price much higher than the current trading price usually means the company expects significant growth. But it also means that if the stock doesn't perform as expected, these warrants might never be exercised, diluting the potential upside for the company and being worthless for the investors. It's a bet on future performance and the success of their pipeline. The reliance on private placements and exemptions also suggests that perhaps a broader public offering wasn't feasible or as attractive at this moment. We should keep an eye on their stock performance and how they deploy this new capital. Are they hitting their milestones? Are they managing their cash efficiently? These are the questions that will determine if this raise was a strategic masterstroke or just a temporary fix. Overall, ProMIS Neurosciences is making a bold move to secure funding potentially to fuel major advancements. The success of this strategy hinges on their ability to deliver on their promises and see their stock price soar above that warrant exercise price. Now, looking at these numbers in the strategy, the company is essentially raising funds by offering a future opportunity to buy their shares at a premium. This implies confidence from the management and the investors involved. However, a key risk here is the company's ability to actually increase its share price to that 125 fine mark to make these warrants valuable and to ensure the company's long-term viability doesn't rely solely on warrant exercises. What's your take on ProMIS Neurosciences' latest funding move? Do you think these warrants are a sign of good things to come or a risky bet? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this breakdown helpful, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more deep dives into corporate filings. Also, don't forget to join our Discord channel linked in the description for more insights and discussions. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.